Hi, everyone. So I have a short on YouTube that went viral about my brain illness and recovery. Now, I first fell ill in January of 2020 with a flu that caused a racing heartbeat that would wake me up whenever I fell asleep at night. And it was a crazy racing heartbeat. There was a cough component, there was a gastrointestinal component, meaning I had diarrhea, and it didn't just last for, say, a couple days or a week. It lasted for months, and it also completely reversed my bowel circadian rhythm, meaning I would wake up in the middle of the night to go poo instead of during the day. And that was also a symptom of the fact that the flu was affecting me neurologically because we have a normal circadian rhythm. And when something in our brain is disrupted, frequently that causes sleep problems and a disruption in our daily rhythms of life. It also probably reflects the fact that this flu affected my neurotransmitters in some way, probably via my gut. And what else about the flu? It made me delirious initially. If you've never experienced delirium, I don't know how to explain it to you other than you feel out of it. You feel irrationally panicked. You don't feel normal. Your perception of reality is altered. So, in that sense, delirium is resembles to a certain degree psychosis or a feeling of derealization, but it's sort of more acute, meaning like rapid onset and intense instead of something that just like is around constantly. It's not like dissociating; it's more like just feeling, out of it because you took too much of, I don't know, a bad drug, or you had a bad trip. That's sort of what delirium feels like, plus the symptoms of a flu, meaning like a high temperature and whatnot. So I was delirious, and my illness started with this flu-like illness that lasted weeks and weeks, and I just gradually deteriorated. So the best working guess of what happened to me is that I had some form of a brain infection. Because they never performed a lumbar puncture, we will never know what it was. Um, Lumbar punctures are when they go into your spine, they take a sample of your spinal fluid, they analyze it for bacteria or pathogens or abnormal markers in your cerebral spinal fluid. And then they try to divine what might be causing your neurological symptoms. Um, in my case, they never did that because I ran into a lot of issues at the hospital because my symptom cluster didn't fit anything that they traditionally knew about. And like I said, the best guess that we've now come up with, at least not years later, but at least 10 months after the fact, was that I got COVID and then it affected me neurologically and it also affected my intestines. Now, it wasn't me that came up with that theory. It was a neuropsychiatrist as well as other doctors. Another neurologist called it a post-viral syndrome because had it been a bacterial infection that attacked my brain, I would have probably required antibiotics to resolve it. And people can get things like viral meningitis, and there is no cure other than time. So I think the same thing applies to long COVID or any other virus that attacks your body and you end up with neuroinflammation or inflammation in the brain. All you can do is get through the rough period where you're neurologically disordered, and then you gradually recover over time. And certain lifestyle things like a good diet, good sleep, supplements, a healthy emotional life, exercise, these things will help you naturally to recover. So I had a lot of people at the outset of this. I hope I'm making sense. Is my volume good, by the way, guys? Are you satisfied with what I've presented so far? Hi, BB. Hi, Neuro Too Cool. Hi, Sophia. Hi, G Prime. And L, can it go away? Yes, well, it can go away, just like long COVID in some people does go away. And if what I had was a form of long COVID or COVID that persisted across months and made me get progressively worse, more neurologically disordered, more emotionally disordered, the whole issue with my having chronic diarrhea, losing 25 pounds, which also happened during my illness. It'll go on until the ACE2 receptors, they think, are cleared of the spike protein that is the main thing that causes all the problems with COVID in the first place, from inflammation to what is known as a cytokine storm. Um, so 5 by 5 sounds good. Okay, good. I'm glad it's good. I wish I would have had more people that would have stayed, but maybe they had other things to do. They didn't want to hear about this particular information, being my neurological illness in 2020 and my recovery. Now, one of the things that happened while I was ill, outside of having brain fog, but it was even beyond brain fog. Like I told you, first it was delirium, then it was confusion, then it was increased anxiety. It was I had sleep maintenance insomnia, so every hour I would wake up. But at the beginning, I would sleep like 14 hours a day, waking up every hour, which, as you can probably imagine, was hell. And then it shifted into, I had total insomnia before I ended up hospitalized. But it had not only like a neurological disruption in terms of my ability to sleep, but it also impacted my ability to think and feel, and gave me abnormal psychology, for lack of a better explanation. So I ended up going to the hospital, and they prescribed me psych medication, which ended up just making me worse, because they also theorize that COVID might make certain people produce an excess of serotonin because it just disrupts the gut. And a lot of neurotransmitters are fabricated in the gut. It might also affect the vagus nerve as well. So these were working against any of the traditional psychotropic medications having an ideal effect on me. So another thing people that don't realize is that certain psychotropic medication or psych meds can result in side effects such as involuntary movement. So because I was probably already not in a normal neurological state, not producing the standard amount of neurotransmitters, I got the worst side effects almost immediately from anything they put me on. But what happens frequently in the mousetrap of psychiatry is that if you go in seeming psychologically abnormal, instead of trying to find other causes that are biological, especially if they're rare, they'll think, oh, she's simply not on the right meds, or she needs her dose increased, which again, in my case, just resulted in total disaster. Now, there is an antidepressant, fluvoxamine, that is effective on COVID. For some reason, again, they don't know why, but it impacts the COVID's ability maybe to bind to the ACE2 receptors, or there's other things about neurons or the nervous system that they don't realize that COVID is occupying, or it's persisting there, that it competes against, and therefore allows people to clear the virus or the viral reservoirs. But I didn't go on fluvoxamine, though I cannot discredit that maybe the large dose of medication they put me on killed whatever it was that was causing the neuroinflammation that was adversely affecting my brain and my consciousness. But it did definitely give me involuntary movements, if it was the psych meds that was causing it and not the neurological illness itself, because also neurological illnesses can cause involuntary movements. But going off the psych meds resolved, for the most part, most of my involuntary movements. So my non-epileptic seizures that you saw, my facial dystonia, where half of my face, or sometimes even both halves of my face, twitch upward and contract involuntarily, or my neck doing that, or my fingers getting stuck together. And also too, we know I didn't need to be on the psych meds, and it wasn't a psychological condition, because once I went off of them, I'm back to normal. I don't have any continued psychological issues. I have no delusions that I think I'm sick all the time. It's very hurtful when people say, oh, it was all in your head. It wasn't. It was in my head, being neuroinflammation, but it was not something that I made up, that I had Munchausen's and wanted attention from doctors for. It was a viral illness, or an illness that attacked my brain, created neuroinflammation or disruption in my neurochemicals. It affected multiple systems of my body, and once it resolved, I slowly got better. But it may have done some lasting damage, because occasionally too now, I still get flares of aphasia, which is wherein I can, in my case, it's expressive aphasia, so I can understand people speaking to me, but I can't speak and garbage comes out. But it doesn't happen all the time. It just randomly seems to happen, or it sometimes happens in conjunction with me being sick. Am I making sense, people? I had wanted to say something, and it was like slipping my mind. I was thinking about the nerve receptor, I think, blockades that psychotropic medication causes. So people don't realize how profoundly psych meds affect your entire body. It's not just your brain that's affecting. It affects your gut. It affects your libido. It affects the nerves that run throughout your body. Actually, weirdly enough, antipsychotics have a nerve numbing effect or a nerve blocking effect. So you can actually give them to chronic pain patients, and they won't feel as much pain. But they have other bad effects, like blocking the ability of your muscles to move properly, which happened to me. So, okay, we'll get to the questions. Then we'll get to the questions that I got beneath the video, which now almost has 1 million views. Hi, Mr. Bitchy. Hi, Emma. Sophia said, I had 22 really bad neurological symptoms, and all tests were normal. We never figured out what was wrong. Was that because of COVID? Someone said that they are having COVID for the 3rd time. And I feel sorry for you if you retracted the information or retracted the comment. John says, I think I had COVID a couple of times. So do I. Didn't have tests on hand, so I'll never know unless I get tested for antibodies. And they kind of hide out too. It's very complicated. There's different types of immunity to COVID. It was very mild, but distinctly different from a cold or flu. Yes, the flu I had that started all this neurological hell was unlike anything else I had experienced. The delirium, the fact that it just kept getting worse and worse and never went away, the fact that it affected so many parts of my body, my gut, my lungs, having a flu, body pain, like the spike protein, if that's what causes all the problems of COVID, is just a bitch. It's brutal, it interferes with all of our normal functioning systems, that are necessary for us, feeling good and being functional. So Redacted said, hi, Davison, are you fully recovered now, or do you have relapses and such? No, I don't have relapses. Like, I have no emotional relapses. Like, I don't have the heightened anxiety that I had during. I don't have the cognitive dysfunction. Like, at one point I was like losing the ability to remember my multiplication tables. I was losing the ability to write properly. I did some form of an intelligence test and I scored super lower than my son. I at one point when they also gave me the medication, I was talking like this, like I was like slow. And coming out of it has been miraculous. It's almost like my brain kind of contracted into occupying, this tiny little sphere of consciousness, and going off the medication, which one of them was like a major tranquilizer, and the healing from the illness has been like a series of concentric circles expanding every month since I got better. And I felt like a lights broke in my head. It almost felt like lights exploded when I first got ill. I remember the exact moment of feeling like a light went off in my head and something was off. It snapped, right? That was when I fell ill. And that's the best explanation I can give, is that it felt like a light going on in my brain, and I was like hyperstimulated and not normal. And then coming out of it, I was in the hospital, and it was like a switch, and I all of a sudden gasped. I was in the hospital room with someone else, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm me again. It was like wherever it was in my brain that was most affected, it like cut me off from my ability to have the personality or normal emotionality of myself. Like, for a large portion of my illness, I couldn't cry, I couldn't laugh. I had flattened affect. I was like a zombie, and my perception of time, thankfully, weirdly, was sped up. So days went by faster as I just laid in bed in agony, unable to sleep, fearing the worst, not thinking normally, feeling out of it. It was unspeakable hell. And then to be treated like shit by medical professionals was even worse. And also it being the context eventually of COVID, where my family couldn't visit me, nor could my friends. I had no one to advocate for me, and I had to advocate for myself while fucked to the moon, like half of my intelligence. It was awful. So no, I do not in any way feel confused, anxious, zombie-like, not having normal feelings like I used to. The only thing that remains is I sometimes get involuntary body jerks. Sometimes these fingers get glued together, these ones, which, if what we theorize is true, and it probably shows up as a small area of hyperintensity in my left frontal lobe, which keeps appearing on brain scans, I have some degree of damage there. And the area of the brain that is responsible for language is also close to the area that controls your hands. So it could be the explanation, is that occasionally it gets triggered or it's trying to rewire. So it creates a bad circuit, and my hands stop moving normally. And I sometimes go into, like I told you before, those aphasia spells, wherein for a period of like the maximum I've had, it was on and off for an hour, but it's generally 1 to 10 minutes, wherein I can understand what's going on. Though I do sometimes get into like a bit of a trance, and then before or after, I get headaches. I usually get dizzy before, and then headaches after, that run up here and behind my eyes. But what was I saying? So sometimes I get the aphasia attacks, but other than that, and I guess I was explaining what region of the brain, so whatever area of the brain is involved in the ability to speak and control my hands, I'm normal. I'm back to my old self again. And I also I lost a lot of weight while ill, and I had one of the signs of someone who's likely to die from their illness usually loses, I believe it's more than 10%, maybe 11% of their body weight. I had lost that much. But then when they put me on the major tranquilizers, it affected my metabolism, and I gained like 25 pounds. So I was like up to 164 pounds. I'm finally down back 20 pounds to 144, 145. So I'm getting closer to my pre-illness weight. And yeah, I'm blessed to feel normal. And every month I just regain function, which typically now is just cognitive processing speed. So as I've recovered, like I can handle switching between more tasks. Like, oh, I'm going to do this video, and I'm going to do this channel, and I'm going to do this, paid platform. And then I'm going to go to the store, and then I got to clean this. And, at the beginning of my recovery, I could only do a few things. And now I can like juggle a bunch, and my brain can handle a bunch of different information simultaneously. And that was robbed of me briefly, my executive function during my illness. So I'm lucky. I'm only left with some aphasia, which may or may not also be some form of a complex migraine that's associated with having had bad, severe COVID. Maybe it's also associated with some degree of brain infections or encephalitis, because I could have had a parainfectious encephalitis. They said they could not exclude it because they never did a lumbar puncture, and some involuntary movements, but that's it. I am back to myself again. Oh, and sometimes I do get facial twitches here and there, but they're nothing like they used to be. So Sophie's never had COVID. You're lucky. Haven, you're lucky. Mr. Bitchy, you're lucky you never had COVID. Phil said, I had COVID recently. I could really feel it doing strange things in my head. Yeah, it does. John says, and from what I can tell from the literature, the spike from the shot is way worse from the COVID, more persistent and more destructive, and the trial won't be over until the end of next year. Yeah, we got to wait for the data on that. That's all I'll say. That's all I'm at liberty to say. Yeah, that's all I'm at liberty to say. I think perhaps the problem may be the method of delivery, the fact that it's not always ejected in the same spot. If it gets into the circulatory system, some people develop clots, not all. It can also cause heart inflammation if it doesn't get deposited in the right spot in the deltoid. But we won't talk about that. I prefer to wait for the data. I don't want to debate about the vaccine in this broadcast, but I appreciate you bringing it up, John. And it, like everything, people want to believe that health is cut and dry and that doctors know everything or researchers know everything. And there's one fundamental truth. That's not true. Sometimes illnesses are mysterious. Sometimes they are new. Sometimes they are complex. Sometimes they affect one person one way, another person another way. The same applies for consuming any substance or receiving any injection. Some people are fine. Other people are not. We're not all physiologically the same. And in life, there is no absolutes. And as much as anyone wants to tell you there are absolutes in science, there actually aren't. There's just things we can prove consistently over time. And we try to define them as well as we can with the research that has been done and is available. And if, we believe that something needs to advance, we maybe then form another hypothesis, question it, do more research, and then refine further. So people who want an absolute answer as to what attacked your brain, we will never know. We can just do a differential diagnoses or do differential diagnosis like the doctors and go, here were her symptoms. Here are the diseases that we know that are associated with those symptoms, and then deduce what it may have been. We can measure the fact that I have largely recovered by my behavior and my, personal testimony, but sometimes doctors don't know. what happens to people. We don't know all the diseases that exist. We don't know all the drug interactions that exist. And not one drug can affect one person vastly differently depending on their health state. I responded probably worse to the psychotropic medication because I was so ill. And maybe I'm a poor drug metabolizer, like the unknown is frequently the greater truth than what is pushed to be the known or the absolute. Does that make sense? No, whether or not I got vaccinated is irrelevant, but I fell ill before vaccination was even available, right at the start of when COVID likely hit. A lot of neurology is still quite mysterious. And I hope I'm making sense, because I sometimes feel like I'm babbling and have to fight losing my train of thought. I have a bit of a cold right now. Oh, COVID for the 50th time. Though I think based on the severity of my first infection, it's unlikely that it will attack my brain, knock on wood, in the same way ever again. And Tara said, my sister and my dad had COVID. My sister had it twice. They've all got their injections. My mom and I haven't gotten COVID. Marietta said, my aphasia was a reaction to morphine post-surgical, couldn't speak, hallucinations, delusions. That sounds terrible. Nathan said, you should be taking B1 and NAC. Thank you. Thank you. Do not mean to offend you. Oh, no, I don't. No, you're not offending me at all. Don't worry about that. I appreciate it. Yeah, NAC or niacin. I have actually niacin up here. Wait, am I thinking? Hold on. This is NMN. Sorry, this is like NMN and NR, flush niacin. NAC is different. That's N-acetylcysteine, right? That's different than this. But this also helps long COVID patients. Flush niacin, but it has to be the flush version. Yeah, NAC is N-acetylcysteine, right? Just a minute. And someone suggested that I take lion's mane mushroom, and I did during my recovery, but I went off of it after about 5 months because I kept getting nauseous at night. And I kept seeing fractals when I'd wake up at night during my recovery. And I had issues too with like facial flushing as I went off all the meds and recovered. So I stopped it. It did make me feel kind of pleasant though, the lion's mane. And it's been reported to have mood elevating effects. NAC NAC is related to glutathione. Okay, so it's not like NMN or NR. So the flush niacin is NMN, NR. NAC is related to glutathione. Yeah. NAD is vitamin B. Okay. NAD. Well, and NAD. NAC versus NAD versus NR versus NIAC. Oh my God. There's literally an article. NAC versus NAD versus NR versus niacin versus NMN. That's funny. Here, I'll just put this in the chat. Okay, so I'll try NAC. I've never tried it. Rest, dear lady. Me? Well, here it's only 7:30, so I should not be resting yet. And I had a hearty dinner. So right now it's question and answer time. And yes, fever hallucinations are scary as fuck. I agree with you. I'm sorry if you're not feeling well, anyone in the chat. How long did you have aphasia for, Marietta? I read an article recently that said that coming out of a coma, or rather coming out of a medically induced coma, or maybe also coming out of a coma, you're in like a nightmarish state for like 2 weeks. Most people think like when you wake up from a coma, you wake up kind of like the way when I recovered in hospital. I wasn't 100% immediately, but there was like a switch that went on. I was like, oh my God, I can actually feel again, right? But it's more like you're in this like dreamlike, distorted, screwed up state where your brain figures out how to process reality again when you come out of a coma. And I'm sure that, or medically induced coma. So maybe that's what sort of it was like for you when you had drug-induced, aphasia and hallucinations, Marietta. Thank you, Eric. Do I suffer from dizziness and balance problems? No, other than I get dizzy before I get an aphasia attack or aphasia attack / migraine, which sometimes also results in eye pain and pain along the side of my head here and around my head. So many things. I was a cluster of symptoms, and now they're much diminished. I feel so tired. This is better. It smells like smoke. The person upstairs smoking. Okay, so I'm answering the comments that I'm getting from beneath the video itself. This is the one that now almost has 1 million views. How old was I when that happened to me? Do I want to talk about my age? I was in my early 40s when it happened. 42 to be precise, in 2020. Unfortunately, I'm happy to be alive, so it shouldn't matter how old I am. And I'm working on an anti-aging series, and I do a lot of things to promote anti-aging in myself. But yes, I was 42. So what was the brain illness? I think this whole broadcast has explained that. We won't know, but it was probably some form of post-viral syndrome, probably COVID that attacked my nervous system and my brain. It attacked me neurologically, and it was like long COVID, so it took months to recover. And then it was made worse briefly by psychotropic medication. And then once I came out of it and I went off the psychotropic medication, I have gradually recovered. And it would be impossible to know too, because we cannot isolate the variables, what damage I sustained was because of the neurological illness and what damage I sustained was because of the side effects from the psych meds that I was temporarily putting on. 40s, you don't believe that? Well, I am 40 fucking 4. I didn't roll my face, no Botox yet. I have a younger partner who is a beautiful human being, and apparently consuming the microbiome of younger people is anti-aging. I suck the blood of a younger lover. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally sane now, totally normal. I'm kidding. I am sane, but I don't suck anybody's blood. But I also do mostly low carb. I have done hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is anti-aging. I would love to do more of it, but it affected my ears. I've done red light therapy. And like I said, I'm starting a series based on anti-aging, and I might be taking a drug called rapamycin soon, which is one of the most promising anti-aging drugs out there. It's not something you go on long-term. You take a very low dose once a week, and I will be doing that as well. So he's not a boy toy. He's my partner. I love my boyfriend. He is my favorite. Him and I make spicy content together. Know what keeps you young? Be kinky on the internet. Lots of sex. That's what John can attest to the sex. Oh, I lost viewers. Like, oh no, I thought that we were going to feel sorry for her, but now we don't. Okay. Being young is partially mindset, but to be fair, I looked a lot younger than my age before I got sick. I literally looked 28 before I got sick, and I do look a little older since my illness. I believe they have done studies that COVID might shorten our telomeres, which are the caps of our chromosomes. It might have an aging effect on people. Doesn't mean you cannot reverse it. Some people like to believe that, aging is progressive and inevitable and cannot be reversed. That is not true. Our bodies are, miraculous healing machines, and you can, with a really good lifestyle and diet, reverse some of the damages. So I feel like some of the damage that I sustained, I have reversed, but I am also, older, and hormones have an effect, and probably my hormones are changing due to my age. But other than that, I feel like I've undone some of the damage that COVID did to me. Thank you. And okay, so, and he's not a boy toy. He's very smart. Don't call Mr. Mystery a boy toy. He's wonderful. He's adorable. I wish he's in the other room. He's not feeling very well. Poor baby. His tummy hurts. I'm about to publish, by the way, another Patreon video, because I did this video of, like, I was in a relationship for a long time we disappointed each other, but was very disappointing because ultimately I was, they started dating someone behind my back. And then this is like a short video that I made based on a trend where you show your before crying or looking rough, and then the after is like, I thought I couldn't live without you, but look at me now. So Mr. Mystery was a part of that, and I think it was really cute. Where were they going with that? I don't even know where I was going. I'm losing my train of thought. What was I saying? I wish I could rewind my own broadcast and be like, oh shit, what was I saying about that? Oh yes, I'm about to edit a Patreon video showing the behind the scenes with Mr. Mystery because he had to sit on the bed. We did like multiple takes of that trend. That the video, by the way, is on this channel. Here, I'll show you. Where is he? This is so funny. Well, that's the test. The test. Here, I'll show you guys the test video. So this is me testing what the lighting looked like for the shooting of that video. So we're going on a bit of a tangent. How much do I have to turn my screen brightness down? Okay. So this was me running a test beforehand for that video. So I was like, okay, my boyfriend has to be here. And like the final shot is going to be of me like putting my hands around him. So you'll see all this like behind the scenes stuff on my Patreon. My Patreon is spicy if you want to join it, but right now it's $15. And it's not too spicy. It's only varying degrees of booty and booby because Patreon doesn't allow other forms of nudity anymore. So anyhow, let me show you Mr. Mystery, and then we'll go back to the questions. Sorry, people, if you're losing interest in this. I have to make sure not to show the wrong video. So then here's this is the shot we didn't use of me like practicing on him. See, people think that these like short videos take like 5 seconds and they take so much longer. So this is me trying to look at how beautiful and sexy and like glamorous I am now. I was a nasty bag of sad tears. And now I'm so incredibly happy. Which I suppose I am, but I'm like, we have to make him look young too. That makes him look like he's like fucking 22. He's not. Do you guys think that this looks like the back of Mr. Mystery? Those of you who know him. There I am with my hair done. I bought like a wave iron. Anyhow. That'll be in the Patreon video. So back to the questions. So we got to go back to the questions. What kind of infection was this? I already answered that. I'm glad you're better now. What was it? Okay, I've answered that question like 20 times. I love your vitality. You're amazing. Thank you very much for saying that. Oh, I cannot read your name because it's different characters, some sort of Asian language. I don't know if that's Japanese. I don't know what language that is. Yeah, Patreon is 15. You could downgrade, but then some of the pages that are the posts that are locked on the page are still locked at 20, so you'll lose access to those. Oh my God, do you guys want to hear this question? I'm so sorry for you. Feel better. Well, I do feel better. It took a long time, and it takes a long time, by the way, too, to recover from the nerve receptor blockades that psychotropic medication or psych meds cause, especially the major tranquilizers. Those are what are also known sometimes as neuroleptics or antipsychotics. It takes years for your nerves to regenerate. Some people get permanently damaged, though, if they've been on them for years at higher doses, because the brain is slow to recover, even though it can recover. And I feel very sorry for those people. But anyhow, yes, I do feel better, even though it took a very long time to feel back to like who I was before I was ill. The Salem witch trials, how people would become bewitched and throw these crazy fits before being, and then they put like the skull emoji as a witch. I suppose that means ended as a witch. Well, that's scary. And the people would blame others for being witches. And though we know it wasn't witches, we still don't know what it was. What if this had something to do with that? Yeah, a mysterious neurological illness absolutely could have caused symptoms that people couldn't explain, that therefore led them to make the simple, easy conclusion that these women were witches. Yeah, absolutely. Am I a witch? No, I'm an oracle. Look that up. But I'm sure some people think I'm a witch, but no, I am not. Um, yeah. There's a mysterious illness right now that's affecting people on the east coast of Canada, and they think it might be tied to the shellfish they're eating. So anything is possible when there's mysterious, symptoms that can't be explained. Could be a pathogen, could be a bacteria, could be a genetic thing, could be a poison. It takes a lot of time, research, and investigation to figure things out sometimes, and some things are unexplained. And it could be a pathogen that existed in that moment, or a combination of things, and then the conditions cease to be possible, and so the disease will never reproduce itself. That looks like the back of Mr. Ballin. If you know who that is, no, I have no idea. You should link your Patreon if you're going to talk about it. Everywhere you want to find me is /Davison Video. I'm going to be sending out a Patreon email reminding people that if you want to find me on other platforms, it is, say, onlyfans.com/Davison Video, patreon.com/Davison Video, fansly.com/Davison Video. Just go /Davison Video. I am there. And why do I do that? Because YouTube doesn't pay shit. I made $150 for 1.5 million views last month. Tell me how you survive on that. You can't. So by the way, any tips here are appreciated. Okay. So far, the questions from the video just seem to be the same thing. What was it? What was it? What was it? What was the illness called? It would be a great way to raise awareness. Okay, so what kind of movement symptoms persist? I think I already explained that in this broadcast. Sometimes I get body jerks like this. Sometimes my fingers stick together. I still get wrist jerks too. I forgot about that. My left side of my body was affected worse than my right. My right has a full range of motion, feels normal. Not so much on the left. It's jerkier, and sometimes it twitches like this. Sometimes also to my pinky or fingers like to do just random things, just move on their own. That's what involuntary movements are. You cannot control them. They're like tics, like an eyelid twitch. You can't control it. It's like that, but it's with bigger muscle groups on me, in my back. And sometimes when I jerk from my back, it's from the left side that it originates, and it happens for sometimes less than a minute, sometimes more. Sometimes stress can trigger it. Sometimes it's illness. Sometimes there's no trigger I can divine. Sometimes I've had too much coffee. Sometimes it's some supplement I'm reacting poorly to that's too stimulating. It's complicated. And also, yeah, someone who said, "Oh, I can tell you were faking it because it's impossible to have those. They were too regular to be involuntary movements." That is absolutely wrong. And myoclonic jerks can be regular. And you try having the non-epileptic seizures that I had. Throw yourself to the ground and try to seize the way that I was seizing. Impossible. Impossible. You can't fake it. You can't voluntarily make your body do that. And how involuntary movement feels is like, you would think I would feel more disturbed about it than I do. I mean, sometimes when I get aphasia and I go kind of dumb, oh yeah, sometimes my eyelids will close involuntarily too. But like that's scary when I get kind of dumb and I'm out of it. But like when I get a jerk, it's more annoying. It's like, oh, kind of like if your foot twitches or is actually has more of an emotional impact because you're like gasping. But it just happens. It's like, I can't see, and that's me voluntarily moving my wrist. It's gentler almost when it's an involuntary movement, sort of, because the body jerks are not gentle. They're kind of more violent. And they just happen. It's like a hiccup. You can't control it, or an eyelid twitch. You just sort of ride the little wave. It's like a blip. And it happens usually without any indication it's going to happen. So you don't necessarily have any fear leading up to it or an emotion leading up to it, because it just happens out of nowhere. So your brain doesn't have a chance to kind of react to it while it's happening, if that makes sense. Aside of like afterwards, sometimes I'm annoyed. I'm like, oh, fuck, another flare. But over time, it seems that most of my symptoms are of lesser and lesser severity. Though the aphasia weirdly kind of got worse the last couple of months, which is why I had another brain scan again. And they still found the area of hyperintensity, my left frontal lobe, and my pituitary gland is slightly enlarged, but based on my prolactin levels, it's within the range of like my prolactin levels are within the range of normal at a high normal. So they're not concerned necessarily right now that I might have a lesion on my pituitary gland. But it is slightly bulkier than one would expect, but it could be physiologic. So, Lord Farquaad, hi, I got the COVID vaccine and I have been having it racing hard ever since. Cardiologist said it was a vaccine. I'm bedbound all August. I'm so sorry. I was perfectly fine before my vaccine. Okay. What I'm going to tell you that you could do to help you, and make sure you check with your doctor, but COVID affects ACE2 receptors, and they discovered that compounds in citrus peels help to clear the virus from the ACE2 receptors. So do yourself a favor and have a whole lemon a day, cut up with the peel, eat the peel. So I don't care if you put some like stevia on it or sugar on it, just make sure you consume, or honey, probably ideally honey or raw, consume the whole half lemon, because that will help your body clear the spike protein from inflaming your heart, hopefully too, or your endothelium, which is the lining of your blood vessels. Secondly, there's something called black seed oil. Take between 500 to 1,000 milligrams of black seed oil capsules daily. Have it in the morning before 11 a.m. or you will experience more vivid dreams at night. It affects the opioid receptors. So if you're on any opiates or you're drinking any depressants, there could be an interaction, but that will also help you. It's anti-inflammatory, it's antiviral. It will help your heart. So black seed oil and a half a raw lemon a day. It is very unlikely to hurt you, though do check out any drug interactions with the black seed oil if you're on any other medication, as I said. But do that and tell me how you feel in 2 to 3 weeks. I hope you feel better soon. I do feel a lot better. Another thing that happened to me during my illness, by the way, is that I got inflammation and fluid at the back of my right retina, which I still have, but they're keeping an eye on it. And so far, just now, I see a bit of like a silver shadow if I close my eye and I blink it. But I'm blessed that I had even worse vision during my illness and I've recovered a lot of it. I don't need glasses. Though I have light refractive errors that I didn't used to have. So sometimes, like, that's when it's kind of blurry. When you look at printed words, you see like a little shadow above or below it. And sometimes, like car lights look weird, but other than that, I'm a lot better. But please try that and get back to me, by the way, if that helps you out and fixes you. So I have a lemon tree there. Do it, Lord. Even if you can eat one lemon a day, eat one lemon a day, the whole fucking thing, and you will be surprised how much better you feel. And there's an article you can find, citrus oils and geranium oils, and their impact on the ACE2 receptors with regards to COVID. Just type that into Google and you'll find all the papers that they're working on. They're even thinking of using citrus peel waste to come up with supplements that benefit as complementary treatments for COVID and post-COVID syndromes, or in your case, post-vaccine syndromes. You've got vivid dreams. Well, the black seed oil can also give you vivid dreams, but it's less likely to give you as vivid dreams if you take it early in the day. So look up black seed oil, and the kind that I use, I believe it's called NAKA, black seed oil. It is. Hold on. because I want to give you the one that I take that I know worked on me, so I know it's bioactive, because not all black seed oil is made necessarily equal. It has to have the right concentration of something called thymoquinine, and it's not always standardized, but this one works. Where is it? There we go. NACA. Yeah, it is NACA. Here, I'll put a link to it. It's great. And so just take 1 to 2 of those capsules daily, and you'll see. Oh, it's not letting me link to it. Do I have to include all this shit? I don't think I have to include all this shit. There we go. Okay. Have I made sense, people? Have I gone on too many tangents? I hate when I do that. I have like a personality trait, or just not a behavioral tick, but like a behavioral tendency, quirk, I guess you could say, to like interrupt my thoughts, because I get too far ahead of myself. So instead of completing my thoughts, I go on tangents, maybe out of fear that I'm going to forget what I wanted to say and lose my train of thought. And make sure, though, Lord, are you on anything? Like, are you taking any other drugs? And I would say try out the 500 before you go up to the 1 gram, because you want to make sure you feel okay on it. Thymoquinone. Yeah, thymoquinone is what's in. Thymoquinone is in black seed oil. Here, I'm going to put a link to an article in the chat about thymoquinone. That's what's in black seed oil. And it makes you feel great, by the way. It makes you a little bit high. It's a bit of a chill pill. Like, not high. You don't feel high. You more feel like chill as fuck. Like, everything's cool. It's got an anti-anxiety kind of effect. I believe they call anti-anxiety effect anxiolytic. Yeah. Anxiolytic. By the way, I might be studying neuroscience soon at a university. I'm going back to school in medicine in January. So there's that. I'm going to be and then I will rain hellfire on the people that didn't provide me proper care. But thank God for the internet, because it helped me to find solutions for my healing and for my drug tapering from the psychotropic drugs they put me on. You know, I got a jeweler's scale and gradually divided my doses to wean myself safely off some of these drugs. And also the fact that there were people talking about the side effects they experienced from some of these drugs, and equally all the people that survived COVID that are giving advice on natural supplements that you can take to help recover from COVID quicker, and or recover from vaccine injuries or long COVID. And thank God for all the researchers too that I can look up that are doing stuff like research on lemon peel or citrus waste as a potential treatment or complementary treatment for recovery from COVID. Not a cure, just a complementary treatment. So look up if there's any beta interactions between beta blockers and black seed oil. Yeah, 6 months. Yeah. It took me from the time I fell ill to the time I started to come out of it was just over 7 months. It was like towards the end of July, early August, though I had all of those terrible movement symptoms. I was at the height of them. That was because I was at the height of the amount of psychotropic medication I had been taking at that time. Okay, so let's keep scrolling. Okay, I talked about my movement symptoms. Oh, here we go. Let's not spread the message that people don't need medication. Well, sometimes people don't need medication. Sometimes medication makes people worse, and some medication or most medication has side effects. So it's a benefit. It's a The decision to take a medicine is a benefit to risk ratio or a benefit to side effect ratio that you have to determine if it's worth it for you, if the cure is better than the disease. So some people shouldn't be on medications that they think that they are making them better, or that are only providing a partial solution. Right? Why would you want to take a drug that, say, gives you liver cancer, just to make you feel slightly less anxious, right? The cure is worse than the disease, and there are other solutions sometimes for a disease. And medication, sometimes you just need to take medications transiently or temporarily and not permanently. And I have very strong opinions about psychotropic or psych meds. I think that they are not needed in the majority of cases. I think people have post-viral syndromes or other nutritional or lifestyle imbalances or it's the result of our sickened society or too much social media consumption or social isolation, and all of these causes, or dietary deficiencies. So as I was saying, all of these causes should be addressed before thinking that you can take a pill to alter your consciousness, because that's all these pills basically do, is that they're altering consciousness. Like, it's no different than having a glass of wine every day. Quite frankly, I would rather someone, in many cases, have a glass of red wine every day than to take certain psychotropic medication, because the psychotropic medication affects your entire nervous system, not just your brain. It affects your gut. And, there's tons of studies that say that people who are on psychotropic medications on average live 10 years less than those who are not. And, there's an overdiagnosis, I think, of certain psychological ailments that might just be the human condition or human misery, and the person's life needs an overhaul. It's not because that there's a neurochemical imbalance. The Lord knows neurochemical disruptions can result in abnormal behavior and neurological symptoms, but that's not the majority of people. And we were kind of sold a bit of a marketing lie, but this is my opinion. So yes, some people would be better off not taking medication and addressing their illness in other ways. But certainly, if you are diabetic, take your insulin. Like, there are some life-saving drugs that people can't go off of. Or if you have HIV, please don't stop taking your antivirals. Stuff like that. Or if you have severe epilepsy and it can only be treated with certain benzodiazepines, please take your medication. If the benefits are greater than the risk, please take your medication. Okay, I hope that made sense. Okay, so someone said, in the most respectful way, I don't understand this story. So she had neurological issues, then resolved them with exercise. No. We don't know what led me to come out of my illness. Could have just been time and my body's natural healing process. Maybe the psych meds, like with the case of fluvoxamine affecting COVID and healing COVID, maybe they killed whatever it was that was attacking my brain, and somehow also affected my eyeball. The exercise was only to, yes, exercise absolutely assists in recovery, but my illness was resolved either by the passage of time, the medication I was on. I also had taken azithromycin at a certain point, though I don't think it was a bacterial infection that caused all of this. But yeah, anything that oxygenates your brain and leads to autophagy, or the clearing of damaged cells, is going to help heal the body, if that makes sense. I did not resolve the neurological issues with exercise. It's just, it benefits the body, strengthens the body, and probably helped recover some of my mitochondrial damage. And then with time, I got better. Was it psychological then, or did she have a diagnosis? I was not psychological. Yes, I had a diagnosis of a physical ailment. And what kind of meds she was on was getting off of them and improved her condition. As I said, I was on psychotropic medication. I was on a major tranquilizer and an SSRI. but had been put on a bunch of things that only served to make me worse. Like I tried mirtazapine. I avoided benzos because, there are also very severe withdrawal effects from benzos if you take them for an extended period of time. Even once taking a benzo, you'll feel hungover the next day. But for me, it was a combination of a specific drug called olanzapine and an SSRI. I was briefly on another psychotropic medication. So they were causing probably the majority, especially the olanzapine, of my movement symptoms, and the high dose of the SSRI that I was on. If that answers that question. Sorry. Okay, I think I'm going to go soon, guys, because I think I've answered everything. Like, it's just people asking me what it was. What are your symptoms? Are you better now? They're asking me if it was the vaccine that caused it. No, the vaccine in my case did not cause it. But the spike protein is what causes the majority of problems in people, which whether or not you get the vaccine or you get COVID, you're exposed to it. So no, it wasn't the vaccine, but yes, it was related to COVID in all likelihood. Or maybe I had something else and the COVID made it worse. Who knows? We'll never know. Sometimes there are no absolute answers. I just know I recovered. And I should not have been on the medication I was on, or I would still need it to feel normal now. I don't. I am normal without it. I am better off without it. I have less movement disorder symptoms without it. I feel like myself again. Thank you if you've stuck with me throughout this whole thing. Okay, that's it. I think that's it. What does it say? So your symptoms were a side effect of some medication you were taking? No. Again, viral illness, then went on medication. Medication was like pouring gasoline on a fire. Got better, didn't need medication, stopped medications, gradually recovered from both the medication-induced injuries and the illness, neurological illness itself. That's all I need to say. I think we're done. It's almost been an hour. Any final questions before I go? And I hope this was not a rambling mess. And please, I hate the people that tell me it was tried to say that I was faking it or that never happened. It did, and it was devastating. I was treated like shit in the hospital. It's very degrading to be hospitalized, especially if it's in a psych ward or any part of the hospital. I was hospitalized in urgent care. Nurses are busy. During COVID, there's not as many people around. There's no one to protect you. There's a lot of people that, are ill in ways that sometimes are dangerous for other people. When doctors can't simply explain your symptoms, they like to treat you like you're crazy, even if you're not. They don't believe you when they should. It was degrading, demoralizing, dehumanizing, and awful. And I'm glad I'm not hospitalized. I will fight my whole life to never be hospitalized for anything ever again, except for if it's minor surgery. And believe patients. I wish doctors would have believed me and investigated the neurological origins of my illness, and would have focused more on me having had a racing heart, me having had a flu, and believe me that I wasn't crazy, that it wasn't psychological, I wasn't having a mental breakdown, just that my pre-existing anxiety was amplified by the neuroinflammation, which it would do to anyone. Anybody who's delirious from a flu is delirious from the flu, not because they are a delirious person. So the same thing I wish would have been applied in my case. And they would have believed me too that I was having these terrible side effects from the medication, because there's a great push from psychiatrists and mental health professionals to minimize patient reports of side effects, because they believe that they just want the patient to stay on the medication. That will solve the problem. But that doesn't help the patient, to gaslight them that they're not experiencing the side effects that they are. They place a value of medication compliance above the side effects that the patient is experiencing, and therefore try to deny that the patient is experiencing them at all, and that's wrong. So yeah, I don't like it when people don't believe me online, or call me crazy or weird, or faking it for attention. And I will always have to live with the notion that there are some doctors out there that didn't believe me and would even not believe me to this day, even if I'm right. And even if I write to them like a 20,000 word paper on long COVID and its neurological effects and show how my initial inciting illness and subsequent symptoms line up with the symptoms that are experienced by long COVID patients, they'll still not believe me and focus on the psychological and be like, oh, well, you had a bad boyfriend before you got sick. It was his fault. Like one doctor even said, I think it was your boyfriend's fault you got sick, which is preposterous. It had nothing to do with him. I was in a shitty relationship for years and it didn't give me, didn't give me sleep maintenance, insomnia, and a racing heart, and a flu or a fever for months, or diarrhea in the middle of the night. That does not make any sense, and I can't believe that doctors can rationalize it. And it's unfortunate too that once you get something written into your medical records, a lot of doctors who are busy themselves and overworked themselves and don't have much attachment to any individual patient will just replicate and base their future analysis of you based on the previous doctor's diagnosis or opinion. So then you can get caught in a trap of misdiagnosis, and that sucks and it's devastating. And I'm lucky I made it out of there alive and not on drugs I never should have been on. And some psych patients end up on this medication merry-go-round wherein their dosages are increased, their medications are switched, and then they get more side effects from the medication. Then doctors try to psychologize those and say, oh, you're crazy because you're crazier, when really the patient is deteriorating because of the side effects of the drugs. It's awful. So a lot of things need to be fixed in our healthcare system, which I think everyone has taken note of. And doctors are just people with degrees also too. We need to take doctors and psychiatrists off a pedestal, even researchers, and definitely politicians. They are fallible. They are flawed. They are not right about everything. And so that's why you need a second and third opinion, or the passage of time sometimes, to find the answers to whatever's, ailing you, or turn to the internet and research and find support groups of people with similar symptoms and figure it out that way. You have to be your own advocate and your own researcher sometimes, and think for yourself, because usually not one individual has all of the answers, or sometimes there is no cure that is commonly given. So there's a subreddit, long COVID long haulers and vaccine long haulers. Yes. And there's one on Facebook that's great. And I think it's called Fasting and Autophagy for long COVID on Facebook. And it's great. Even if you don't have long COVID and you just have COVID, it gives great advice. So, okay, guys, thank you for joining me. Much love, light, and peace to you all. I hope I answered all your questions. If I didn't, leave them in the comments section. If I rambled, I apologize. I'm going to go for a little walk, hug my boyfriend because I love him. And I will see you guys later. Catch me on my paid platforms, okay? Cheers. Bye. Love you. Love and light. Bye. Get better soon, Lord. Eat that lemon. Take that black seed oil. Like the B3 vitamins.